Okay, good morning and welcome to Guided Meditations and More. I'm your host, Ade Richardson, and Guided Meditations and More is a page that I created when COVID hit here in March. Well, really, when it really started to take off here in New York. So I started it in March as a source where people can go to, to get guided meditations if they want or need it. And since that time, I gradually started doing podcasts with various types of people on a variety of topics, ranging from spirituality, politics, coffee. That was one of my favorite topics because I love coffee. And it's been a great experience, and that's been one of the things that I'm enjoying, and discovered that I have a passion for, and meeting with people and talking about these topics. And today, if you're watching this show today, this is the Guided Meditations and More podcast. And I have the great pleasure to be here with Meesh Denny. Welcome, Meesh.
Thank you. So nice to be here. We got here eventually.
Yeah, Meesh and I were trying to set this up for some time, and I had internet problems like the day of, which it was really, really, I was calling the cable and internet company, and basically just, it was very strange because the internet was fine until those mornings. So I think it was meant to happen that we were to have it today. Today is January 20th, 2021. Here in the States is inauguration day. So the changing of transformation, changing of a lot of changes are taking place right now in our country. So I've asked Meesh if she would be okay with any questions and things of that nature. So if you do have any comments or questions, please submit them in the comment section of the video. I have my iPhone here, so I'll keep track of them and I'll get her the questions, and she'll do her best to answer. So let's get right into the conversation. And I thought I would start with your bio, if that's okay.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So Meesh Denny has been journeying home to herself for over a decade. She spent 12 years in private practice as a chiropractor until her soul called her in a deeper direction. She retrained as a spiral practitioner, a body-based emotional clearing modality that forms a transformational journey through the body's energy centers to clear subconscious conditioning, pain, and trauma. She now feels herself more as a medicine woman, weaving her years of experience as a practitioner and the discoveries from her own journey into self to help others to come home to their own remembering. She works mostly online in one-on-one sessions and group programs, and when able, within in-person retreats using a blend of her intuitive touch, emotional alchemy, and vocal meditations. And I just have to say, if you're on this page, you might be interested in guided meditations. And if you really want a great one, I went to Meesh's website, and I think it was called Letting Go. I don't know for sure. Something like that. Am I getting it wrong?
Yeah, I'd actually forgotten about that one.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
That was, your voice was just alone in your presence. It was just so relaxing. So if you're looking, especially today with the stress that a lot of us are going through, and a lot of people like myself may have some resistance to aspects of themselves and things of that nature. And this meditation really helps to just relax into yourself. So it was really great. So I highly recommend it, and
Mm.
perhaps I'll post it on this site and I'll post your website as well. So let's start at the beginning. A kind of cliche question, but where are you from? Where were you born?
I'm English. I was born in I was actually born kind of outside London, but I'm from Devon, really, the southwest of the UK. My dad is actually American. My dad's African American, and my mum is English Irish. So yeah, I'm a bit of a mix, but grew up in a very English, small, rural village, really, from a very young age. So yeah, that's been my beginning. Um, I have moved around a little bit as I grew up, but that was, yeah, I'm definitely a countryside girl at heart. Those were my beginnings. Yeah.
So where you grew up, was there, I take it, a lot of you're around nature and things of that sort. And did
Yeah.
you, was there any, do you think that helped to kind of encourage your journey towards spirituality, or the kind of questioning, the inner
Mm,
questioning or inner search?
I wonder. I don't feel. I mean, I could probably say now that yeah, I have a definite affinity towards being within nature, particularly trees and hills and kind of hilltops, which is I spent my teenage years particularly kind of wandering the country lanes with my friends. That we had nowhere else to go, and that's what we would do. We would camp out in the woods, and those were our beginnings. But yeah, I don't know if it was that really that took me into spirituality, but it's definitely formed part of how I come back to myself, come home to myself. Yeah, for sure. But I think my search began through feeling pain and discomfort and
Mm.
feeling awkward in the world and not really knowing where I fitted or what I needed or who I was or where I belonged, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I guess that came from living in a rural space as a dual heritage woman. Part to do with it. um and yeah, not feeling like I quite fitted those surroundings fully. So that began my search, really.
And feeling like you didn't fit those surroundings, is it because you were a mixed race? And by the way, my dad's African American as well, so we have a connection there. But
Yeah,
is that partly why you felt out of place?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's really important, isn't it? Maybe it's not important for everyone, but it felt important for me, looking back, to maybe have those reference points of what it was to be a black woman, a brown woman. um, there were elements of just feeling different, and I think we all have that in our own individual story, and mine was definitely that I always stood out in that way. I was in a very, very white world, in a very small village, and actually I was kind of a bit of a novelty, so I had that experience of of, of racial difference. Um, and yeah, but I never had anyone to reference what was happening to me as I was growing up, because yeah, I had no other uh, African American women around me at that time. So yeah, I think that was part of it. That was a big part of it. Um,
And what led you into, can you remember that point in your journey where I mean, did you start taking on meditation practice, or was there a religion, or what
mm,
was the beginning of that journey?
so I can see, it's interesting, isn't it, when we talk about things, because there's always like a hindsight quality to the conversation. So I'm always trying to think back to how I felt then. But really, I think my journey has been one of really developing my sense of self and self-worth. So I studied to be a chiropractor and I was very young. I started at age 19. By the time I was 24, I'd graduated. And I found that whole journey very, very intense because of the way I was called to kind of show up to this amount of study and this profession. And so by the time I kind of got churned around in that washing machine and I left, I realized I was actually quite depressed and very unsure of myself, and didn't really know who I was outside of like this chiropractic identity, and B, this kind of like idea of who I should be and who I'd the influences I'd had in my life. So really I actually had a lot of physical pain. I had really, really bad acne. I had that well into my early 30s actually, but I was kind of riddled with digestive issues, constant headaches, migraines. I was, in really deep bouts of depression. And so I started by just seeking help for the pain that I was feeling in my body and seeking help for like the external representation, which I now realize was all this unprocessed emotion, be that ancestral as well as my own stuff that was part of what I'm here to uncover.
Yeah.
So I started going to acupuncturists and energy healers and therapists and more energetic forms of body work. So I was a very mechanical chiropractor to begin with.
Yeah.
And so, I just started getting support with my body and the physicality of what I was feeling. And then I started to realize that, there's a whole other kind of well of stuff that is connected actually to how I feel about myself, and what I've experienced and how I've perceived those experiences and how they've stored in my body and a part of what's creating this discomfort and this pain. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
didn't start with meditation. I couldn't sit still at that age. I was just like, I was an insomniac. I was a bit of a mess actually, but it was very well hidden. It was very well disguised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so did you, through the different modalities that you've tried, like acupuncture and energy work and things like that, was there an experience that gave you some relief, that got you more interested in
Mm.
pursuing that more deeply, or
Yeah.
gave you a sense of hope?
Yeah. Do you know what it was? I actually went and started to receive a form of chiropractic called network spinal
Mm.
analysis. I think the name may have changed now. NSA. I want to say that was probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, maybe more.
Yeah.
And I had a really synchronistic moment where I crossed paths with someone I'd been at university with, and I'd heard about this technique, but I'd never really dived into what it was. And anyway, I showed up at her chiropractic office, and I just had this sense that there was something there for me. I didn't really know what it was. And I just got on the bench every week for a really long time, and I just let her do her thing. And I honestly started to then feel some change. And my physical pain actually took about 2 years to fully go.
Yeah.
Um, but I started to feel this shift in the way I was making decisions,
Mm.
like my clarity of thought. And I guess what it did for me is started to bring in this awareness that actually I had a choice and I had some control over my internal landscape and what was happening for me. And it feels like such a long time ago now, but I slowly started to shed the patterns that I was holding on to,
Yeah.
which were part of what was presenting as the patterns in my physical conditions as well, or my physical symptoms. So from there it was just magical. And then I went on to train to be a network chiropractor, and that's what I did for the last 8 years pretty much of my practice. And it was life changing in that sense. Yeah.
So these patterns that that you became aware of at that moment? That sounds like it was something that maybe was working on a subconscious level, and it was presenting itself in these physical manifestations of stomach pains and headaches and things of that nature. When the patterns started, when you started to become aware of them, um, did you feel overwhelmed, or did you feel like, was there any sense, was there a sense of relief that, okay, now I can kind of see it, or how was that process of it becoming more clear as it came up to the surface, and how did you digest the material that was coming up?
Mm, I think I think it was a combination. I think there was immense relief. I think firstly turning up um, in Thomasina's office and kind of being told that there was a way was the first thing, because I'd already tried a lot of things. I think it's important to say as well that I'd always had this kind of natural desire to seek. So I think by nature I've got this kind of desire to dive in and explore, and I'm quite courageous in that sense. So I guess I always
Mhm.
had this drive to face what was there. That was never really scary for me. I was just so determined to feel better and to thrive. I really wanted to thrive. So yeah, deep relief, like as you feel your body and your mind dropping layers of um, stuff that's been there for so long, the
Yeah,
relief was really immense. And I guess some of it was subtle, some of it was really profound. There were definitely moments where I had to face parts of myself that were really not so nice.
yeah, yeah,
I was very much, and I don't want to shame this kind of victim narrative, but I was very stuck in some ways in my victim. I felt a bit sorry for myself, and
hmm,
I would like to roll in that sometimes and be like, poor me, what am I going to do? So though I had to face a lot of that and realize that that wasn't serving me either,
yeah,
uh, as well as the stuff that wasn't my fault, as well as the conditioning and we all experience stuff in our early years that can imprint on us for sure.
yeah,
I think the biggest thing I've realized is that we all have our own individual way of responding to what we've experienced in all the ways we've experienced those things through
mm,
our early relational years, early integrational years. And for me, I just really adopted this pattern of blending and being really nice and really pleasing and really good and really kind and really loving, at the detriment to my own needs and my own connection to self, my own desires, my own wants. And I
yeah,
think that's the journey I'm still on. It's definitely lightening more and more. But once I realized that I didn't have to live by anyone else's standards, and that despite the experiences I'd had, in whatever way I'd perceived them and carried them and taken them on, I still had a choice to start to really get to know the me that was underneath that, and to fully claim that and choose that and live from that space. So for me, it was shedding the shoulds, it was shedding the
mm,
have to's, it was shedding the, like, am I black, am I white, am I both, how do I exist in that, can I be both, can I be one, can I claim parts of me that haven't been so obvious in my external reality. And it was just getting to know myself as I am, as I was.
yeah,
It's been all the emotions, and um yeah, absolutely all of them, but
yeah,
deep
and
ultimately.
yeah, and you mentioned. I'm just going to read something that you wrote. The gentle, soft exterior that all who met me would either celebrate or challenge had become my mask. I would say yes when I meant no, and no when I meant yes. I would hide within myself, but at the same time felt so unsafe. inside my own body, that my serene, graceful exterior would fall from would 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 far from mirror my internal overreactive inner world. And I that resonated a lot with me, and I'm sure with other people, that when I got from it from there is that sense of self-betrayal that we can sometimes experience. And so when those, and you just talked, kind of encapsulated a lot of that, a little while ago. I just thought we can go a little bit more into that. And what was your, like, walk me through an experience of what that might look like, maybe in relation with someone else, and if it still comes up today, or when it did come up, or what, what techniques do you use to deal with it, or to process it at those moments?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting because I'd forgotten I'd written that. It's really nice to hear those things that I've written because it's such a reminder of where I've been. Yeah, it would definitely show up mostly in relationship, and that's not just kind of intimate sexual relationships, that's all relationship.
Mm.
And how can I put it into words? I guess what I've realized is that this people pleasing way of feeling validated in the world and feeling loved and safe somehow, means that we so easily, I would so easily kind of merge with the other person's reality. So instead of being able to feel myself when I come into connection with another, I would very much be unconsciously thinking, okay, like, what does this person need to be okay? What does this
Yeah.
person need so that I feel okay, and so they love me, or so I feel loved? And so that would show up in so many ways, and like definitely the saying yes when I meant no, in all the ways that's possible.
Yeah.
And within that, not really allowing my needs and my emotions to be vocalized, not really knowing how to vocalize them, actually not really knowing how to access them, to create a space that had really clear communication, or where I was actually part of part of the dynamic in any way. And I guess I would hide those parts of myself that didn't know how to do that and didn't feel safe to do that. So
Mm.
yeah, it ended in really crappy relationships. By crappy, I mean just very disconnected. Me just getting really activated into a lot of confusion and
Mm-hmm.
neediness, and this weird kind of dance of not really being clear about what I
Yeah.
needed. Um, yeah, so and I guess within that, it was, when we're giving this appearance of being okay and everything being fine, it's like the other person being so confused when I would then come with like an issue, because for so long I'd be saying, no, it's fine, it's okay, yeah, everything's okay. So this kind of weird undercurrent of not being truthful,
Mm-hmm.
because it's almost, it's too hard to really speak what you actually need and how you actually feel. So yeah, and that kind of analogy of the swan, the outside graceful white swan, and underneath the legs just going crazy, kicking under the water. That was me. I was internally just so anxious and revved up internally, but I didn't show it. It was very, very masked within that.
Mm.
Now I feel my internals slowly meeting my external,
Yeah.
they're starting to match a lot more now. But
Yeah.
yeah, show up like that. And behind the scenes, I was just, often in really dark holes with my own mind,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
trying to, yeah, because all of that was just wanting to burst through and be felt. Yeah.
Well, that bursts through, so it sounds like, these patterns or these ways of being, as you stated so clearly earlier, was this way for you to feel safe and to, it's kind of something that you relied on to just show up in the world and to feel like everything's going to be okay. And you talk about this in your work as well, that that sort of jumping off into that uncertainty, and and I'm going to read another thing that you wrote.
Yeah.
And this is from the Art of Falling retreat. I'm not, obviously with COVID, I'm not sure if you're doing that right now. Maybe you are. A lot of stuff is being done in the virtual
I wonder if
world.
I wrote this. This might have been the woman I collaborate with, but yeah, read it anyway because it was
Okay.
relevant. Yeah.
It says, sometimes we stand at the edge of a beginning. We peer over, not knowing if we will fly or fall. Without learning the space between the jump and land, how can we trust it? How can we believe it's a space of potential rather than just an unknown in-between world?
Yeah, Rebecca wrote that actually. Rebecca
Okay.
Tento collaborate with, but it's a shared thing we'd created. Yeah, I love those words. That really encapsulates yeah, the journey I've been on, and I think for a lot of us who are journeying in that way, I think
Yeah.
we all come back to that point of like it's about just really learning to trust the spaces we can't see yet, isn't it? And
Mm.
dive in anyway.
Yeah,
Take
and
the
it's and I when I see some of I read some of your Facebook posts, and in some of the pictures, if I'm seeing correctly, you have your hand on your heart um, many times, and I was actually, when I was going through some things recently, still going through some. I'm always going through some things, life. But there was a lot of, the mind was very noisy, and that for some reason that image just popped in my head, and because I had been dropping more into my heart at that point, and then I just had the inclination to just put my hand there, and it just, I I just dropped into the heart, and that feels like that place of unknown, as well as being known, as simultaneous. Like, that's the great paradox, is it's always known, it's always here, and just not trusted. And so, let's, perhaps we could kind of transition into the topic, which is journeying sovereignty. And I know that's, maybe you can start by unpacking that phrase that.
Yeah, I think it relates so much to what we've just talked about, and I think the word sovereignty is one that's really, I think it's been like it's my word of last year.
Mm.
And I love the way sovereignty is described as like it's like having your inner authority. So for me, I've been journeying with this word because that's what I feel like it's like I've been getting into the deeper layers of what that means for me, particularly the last 3 years, I think, if I look back. And so yeah, I think sovereignty is different for each of us. I don't think it will look the same for me as it will for you, as it will for the next person necessarily, because I think what we um I feel like it's based on the experiences we've had and the elements within our own journey um, that need to be released or let go of to allow us to step into this space of really just governing who we are and showing up in the true essence of who we are, and finding out what that means and how that feels and how we want it to be and how we want it to feel. So for me, it's really about what's been serving me is actually just dropping out of all the noise, all the external everything, in the ways that that can really start to, yeah, make us feel like we have to be a certain way to be okay, making us feel like we have to show up a certain way to be a valid human, or a successful human. So for me, it's really tied in with this kind of good girl, people pleaser. And it's been about really finding my own rhythms, finding my own, my own rhythm. And by that, I mean, like, what do I need? How do I want to feel? Who do I want to spend time with? Like, how do I really want to show up that feels totally authentic? I know that word gets thrown around all the time, but I think it's a good one, because it's really about being discerning and being in true integrity to self, which is really hard because there's so much telling us so many different things, particularly at the moment. So for me, I've been journeying this untethering of the people pleasing good girl who has always lived by what I have perceived others need me to be or want me to be, and finding ways to, to really tap into who I am underneath all of that and living from that place. And I guess sovereignty is that for me as well. It's like find your own word, find your own language, find your own form of spirituality, follow whatever you want to follow, but let it be true to what you actually connect with. Let it be true to who you actually are.
Yeah.
And it's been a real breakthrough for me. It's been just a deep permission in allowing myself space to just drop out of all the striving and all the doing and all the noise of, and that's, I think, come from having been in a lot of process for many years as well, which has been amazing. But I reached a point of like, okay, actually, like, what do I want to harvest from that now? What actually feels true? What actually feels like something I want to take forwards? What am I planting for myself? How do I want to express? What is my expression? What is that's truly mine, authentically mine? And I'm still figuring some of it out. I'm still deep in the inquiry, but yeah, for me, there's a sovereignty in even journeying sovereignty. It's and I think at the moment it's really important that we claim that for ourselves, because the world's an interesting place right now.
Yeah. And I think that we need more people living in this authentic way, and just pulling away from the sort of patterns and routines and the seeking safety, or seeking a sense of self, a sense of identity in the groups of people, that sometimes these groups are doing things that are not so good for the overall collective. So I think, from what I think what I'm hearing is that, I don't know, I don't like the word purpose, but but there seems to be this, I don't know, this kind of journey into discovering the soul's unique purpose. What I wanted to ask you as well is how does playfulness come into the picture, in your journey and in doing this type of work?
That's a really good question. That's something I've really struggled with. I can be really serious and a bit militant with my with my inner work, I think, which is part of what I was saying about the, letting go of the striving, because I realized even in my kind of my spiritual quest, parts of it were becoming quite punishing. So Yeah, playfulness for me is something I've really been bringing in this last year as well. Um, I guess it's like holding things lightly and kind of sometimes laughing at myself and laughing at the way we can just get entrenched in these kind of spiritual um, kind of buzzwords and um, paraphrases and all those elements. Um, but yeah, that's something I'm still really journeying, actually. Something, so I've got a puppy, which we were talking about at the beginning. That's really showing me where I can play more. And it's interesting. I've been journeying with this theme of just allowing myself to be on the surface. I think I've always had this desire to dive really deep and be in the depths and feel the emotion, and I'm a really deep feeling woman, and I'm not afraid of the depths. But it's like, actually there's a lot of insight on the surface as well. So allowing myself to be in the lightness and the simplicity of the day to day, which for me at the moment is, yeah, raising a little furry baby, simple things in the home, which for me have ignited a lot of that lightness and that kind of, I guess, playful in some ways. And rolling around on the floor with a puppy is quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
but
I asked that question. I asked that question because I have a hard time with playfulness as well. And there's like this, yeah, I guess I could be kind of militant about it. There's this voice, you got to do this, you got to do this, go very deep, go
yeah,
even deeper.
yeah, me
And
too.
the other reason I bring it up is because, I know a lot of your journey and a lot of your work. You talk about jumping off, to that into that place of uncertainty, and as you well know, our minds are created to avoid certainty. That's how the brain was developed, so that we can create a certain reality that is not the whole reality, but just enough so that we can survive and to get from point A to point B. But I think we all know that things are uncertain. There's so much uncertainty, and I think the way that we sometimes deal with it by creating, developing these patterns of living that may not be very helpful to us, and also the stress and everything else, by resisting, this sort of letting go, kind of holding life so tightly. um, it seems like one of the gifts that we were given is and I just think about children and your puppy, that they have this kind of innate innocence and this playfulness that they can make these, puppies will kind of do things, and you got to make sure that they're safe. And same like kids, they will explore and do these things. And so that's just why the playfulness came up. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful one. And it's yeah, whenever I'm reminded of it as well. And I feel playfulness a little bit as that, like aliveness, that just that innate aliveness that we have, that is also part of, I think, what gets so kind of repressed and shut down, not just by our external world, but by ourselves.
mm,
We can just get a bit tunneled into the seriousness of the things, or the way we shut bits of ourselves down because then might not be accepted, or whatever the
yeah,
story is. Yeah, kids and small animals, they just live outside of the story, don't they? There's no need to be any other way than just what's alive in that moment and to express it. And
yeah,
there's no fear, there's no need for it to look a certain way even. So that's, yeah, really beautiful to come back to that remembering, because it's
yeah,
still in there, isn't it?
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So let's get into, and maybe we were talking about this, spiral work.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Um, so after I basically I sold my chiropractic practice, I want to say 2.5 years ago now. I reached a point with body work that I just felt I couldn't go any further. It's a really long story that I won't go into now, but there was basically just a point where, I don't know if you relate to this, where you can feel your soul kind of just wants to go in a new direction and your mind is kind of like, well, why do you want to go that way? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But there was just this part of me that wouldn't let go of this need to create a massive change. And I tried to really switch my practice and grow it in different ways, and ultimately it just wasn't where I needed to be. So I retrained as a spiral practitioner, which is a technique that was created by Dane Thomas, who you might have seen online, and it's based on kinesiology. So it uses muscle testing to test into the emotional body, or the body's energetic body, where a lot of which is connected to our subconscious mind, basically, which holds a lot of the stuff that we're carrying, the baggage, the unprocessed trauma, the unprocessed emotion, and it sits in there and it sabotages our our truth, basically. And it's what comes up, as we live our lives, in terms of those patterns we were talking about, or our relationship dramas, and all the ways that we play out these patterns. It's all to do with the stuff that we've stored and held on to. So yeah, the spiral is a way of tapping into that using this muscle testing technique, working through the body's chakras, or the energy centers, to clear through those levels of consciousness, basically, and release anything that's stuck. And I actually went to do the training not necessarily planning on being a practitioner. I just spent a year traveling and searching and letting go of that chiropractic identity,
yeah.
with the actual possibility that I might go back to it. But I just needed to let everything go to kind of come back to some kind of knowing of what was next. And now I'm running spiral sessions as the main thing I do, and it's amazing. It's been amazing. Yeah.
And it sounds like your journey prepared you for that. I don't know. To me, I don't know much about this, but being a
Yeah.
chiropractor, you obviously have learned a lot about the body. Was there?
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was a natural transition, or you took to it a little bit faster than maybe someone who might have to do that extra study and research and things of that nature, because you're dealing with muscle memories and body parts and things of that nature, and
Yeah. Yeah, it was a natural. Yeah, I mean, and I'd trained in some basic kinesiology stuff as well through my chiropractic career. I'd added quite a lot of things to my to my toolbox, and I was working as a network practitioner. So I was working energetically with people for those last few years. So yeah, it felt like um, a natural progression.
yeah,
I don't know if progression is quite the right word. It's really hard when I talk about this, because I guess it was, I didn't really have a plan. I just knew something needed to change. And in my practice, I'd always had this desire to spend more time with people. The chiropractic structure is generally quite fast paced, and that never really suited me. And so the spiral has allowed me to bring that experience of 12, 13 years of holding people in a safe space and tuning into what they need. But it's given me this tool that allows me to go a bit deeper
yeah.
and to really create transformation, or really hold the mirror up for people so they can create the transformation. So I kind of chose it, but I also kind of fell into it, and it's opened my community, it's opened my own uh, yeah, my own emotional process, the way I can use the tool with myself. And obviously I went through the spiral before I became a practitioner. So yeah, it's kind of added all the bits that I felt were like missing from the way I was working before for all those years, which is a huge part of why I couldn't settle in the chiropractic
Yeah.
identity, really. Just didn't fully fit that coat. Yeah.
And so how is I guess we can call it a consciousness, awareness, or whatever. There's so many
Mm.
different
Yeah.
words, but I think you understand what I'm pointing at, or presence, or
Yeah.
um, so how much of this is like now we get into a place where it's really hard to use words. So I got to be careful with that. But in how much of this when you're doing this practice, or when you're taking someone through this process,
Mm.
are you also helping them? Are you also bringing them to that sort of place of awareness? And I know this is like it's the words are not like bringing them to the place, or things like
Yeah.
that
I
might
know what
not
you mean.
make a lot of sense, but how much of that is a part of it? And also, do you find that when people are going through this process with you and sort of relax into all these aspects of themselves, and do you feel like they deepen in um, their own sense of self with a capital S, that presence? And
Yeah, definitely. I think every practitioner will hold their own kind of quality um, of what they bring through for their clients. So it might be different for each spiral practitioner, but for me, I guess we hold the transmission of what we've journeyed in our own lives. I think
yeah.
that's what makes us the practitioners that we are. And is part of the wisdom that comes through is what we've alchemized within our own lives. So yeah, for me, I very much find people are drawn to me because of my own journey, and there's a resonance in their journey. So it's yeah, opening into a deeper sense of self. And yeah, a lot of it is shedding like the shame and the guilt and the the stuff from the past that has a lot of self-worth stuff, actually, that is just preventing this kind of full breakthrough into all the things that might connect to that, like wanting to step up in your work, or wanting to call in the relationship, or wanting to deepen your parenting, like your relationship with your kids, or yeah, giving yourself permission to just slow down and take some time and figure out the next steps. But yeah, the spiral, I think, generally holds this really strong ability and transmission of sovereignty, actually, and a sovereignty within your own like creative expression in all the ways that creativity comes through. That could mean how you create your life. It could mean how you speak. It could mean how your art comes through.
Mm.
But yeah, it allows those masks to really drop away, and it allows those identities that aren't fully in service to the you want to be to find their way out of leading the way. Does that make sense? It's like
Yeah.
cleaning the dirty glasses and allowing it those distortions that have formed from our experiences to really find their way out of the body, so
Mm.
we can then show up from a kind of cleaner, neutral, more embodied, self-connected place.
Yeah.
um,
And when you say out of the body, is this like Would you say that let's say there's a pattern or this feeling of, I come to you and I have this pattern, this reoccurring, deep seated feeling of being not good enough. And I look at the world through this, like everything in every situation. And I'm always trying to overcompensate for this not good enough by being good enough, by
Yeah.
proving to everyone that I'm good enough in some way, by not upsetting anyone, by not fully going after things because I'm not good enough. And
Mm.
so, let's say I feel that as a contraction in my diaphragm or something, like this gripping feeling. So
Mm.
how would you work with someone that has, said, this has always been there. I feel hopeless. It's like always this resistance and I don't know what to do, and it's affecting my health, it's affecting digestive system, it's affecting relationships and what have you.
Yeah, so in the spiral, we would, I mean, as a chiropractor, I would have, I guess, worked slightly differently and gone to the body and allowed that energy to move. We found the part of the spine that was not moving so well, and it's that's all part of it too. But in the spiral, we use the chakra system as basically a map to look at the connection between the emotion and the behavior in relation to that emotional state. So it would basically involve me asking you a lot of questions and then using various ways of testing in to find like the core emotions that are connected to those themes. There's so much we could do. We can get you saying statements out loud, and then I'm basically muscle testing in with your permission to your emotional body. That's the bit that can be the most woo woo or the most kind of um, hard to connect with, because it's me testing into kind of the energetics of your being and finding what's there that you can't see. So I mean, like, there's so many ways that could go, and so many individual kind of threads that could be found. In the spiral, what we do is we do things called root clears, which are like a deep clean of the core emotional states that exist within the corresponding chakra levels. So, for example, in the root, we're dealing with shame, guilt, and dogma. And we timeline through your life. So, you might find that age 4, you'd anchored, I don't know, grief to shame or anxiety to shame. So, there's something really powerful in the discovering of what's sitting in your subconscious mind or in your emotional body, naming it. It doesn't really matter when it happened, why it happened, how it happened, what it was related to. It's more about giving your emotional body that hadn't fully processed that thing at that time a chance to release that and move it. Um, and then the the clarity tends to come from that around the why, or the individual kind of insights in relation to that thing that we found and identified and cleared. Does that kind of make sense? So
Yeah.
yeah, so we're clearing the stagnancy within the emotional body, and that then obviously can liberate the physical body. More often than not it does, because that's just a manifestation of the stuff that's unseen. It's just where it's coming out and manifesting. um yeah.
And do
Yeah.
you find that this sort of releasing these energies and so that it's not so sort of stuck, or if that's for the right word, but do you feel like it in yourself and in others that you've worked with, does it tend to in some cases express in creativity and things of that nature? And
Yeah, definitely. definitely. I think creativity and just freedom in your expression is the biggest one I see with the spiral. Um, and that doesn't mean necessarily you're suddenly, just, shouting it from the rooftops and you're needing to be seen in front of everyone. It's so different for each person. Um, the spiral really was, I mean, network chiropractic was like a huge part of my journey, but the spiral opened something for me individually that I was longing to feel, because I was still slightly looping in a lot of my own stuff. So for me, it really lifted the deeper layers of that baggage, of that filter, which was still definitely self-worth. And I can't even describe it. It's almost like it just removes that trigger, it removes that filter, it
Yeah.
removes that response in all the ways that we respond from that wounding. And of course, we still feel things and we still get triggered and we still sometimes have to come back to that theme, but it gave my system a deep momentum and this like
Mm.
really strong trajectory out of the stuff that I would get pulled back into,
Yeah.
and then ages crawling myself out of, because I've got a lot of tools. But yeah, the spiral just seems to give this really permanent change. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you say it removes that trigger. Um, is so is that because the way that we relate to that, it seems like on some level a lot of these things, before we're aware of it, we're kind of living, we have this sort of conceptual framework, and it sounds like the what you're doing is going underneath that and really getting into the energetic substance of it, where on the on the deeper levels there's a sort of, I don't know if you find this, a sort of innocence within that. I mean it, maybe this part that is resistant or feeling contracted is part of the trying to keep us safe in some way, or part of the survival mechanism. Do you find
Yeah.
that some of the removing of the trigger is due to not looking at it as the enemy, like the does it, is the relationship with it a kind of relaxing with this sort of these aspects of ourselves, or
Yeah, exactly. I think it's I think it allows you to find the anchor, the point of where that, because it is, I think, all protective mechanisms, pretty much all these things that we lay down as patterns. It's all ways that subtly we felt safe or protected, or we a sense of self within those things that have laid down. I guess I could compare it to, like, sitting in a therapy chair and talking about what happened when you were 4, or talking about the fact that you don't feel very good about yourself. And I'm not making any therapy wrong, um, but the difference I find here is that it's not really about the why, it's not really about the story. It's like, oh, okay, so that's the charge, that's what my subconscious mind or my emotional body perceived to be happening, and that's what I held on to as truth in that moment. So whatever the reason, whoever's fault I might have thought it was at the time, that's the way it's anchored in for me at that moment. So if we give that a chance to move and be let go of, then it just gives a new point of awareness, it gives space for something else to come in. And what I love about this work, as well, is it's not about making any of those emotions wrong. There's no polarity, there's no good, bad, positive, negative, right, wrong. It's all just energy in motion. It's all just emotion, it's all feeling. So we're not eradicating the shame, we're not eradicating the anxiety. we're just giving it a chance to not be dominating the way we show up to the world, allowing it not to be what creates that filter of how we view all the things that then get overlaid through that lens. So
Yeah.
yeah, it does allow this kind of lightness with it. We don't need to go back and delve in and relive. Sometimes we do, but we don't really need to relive the trauma or relive the thing that happened necessarily. We're just kind of identifying that it's there,
Yeah.
giving the emotional body a chance to let go of it now. That's my experience of it anyway. It might be
Yeah.
different for other practitioners.
No, I'm resonating with that. Yeah, I'm just sensing it within myself as you talk about it. I can see when I'm going to reference that part, within myself, and kind of create this same sort of scenario, which doesn't serve me. And then once I create it, trying to find a panic and try to find a way out of it. So now kind of feeling it as you really express it, really, and you embody this teaching, as well. So it's
Yeah.
easier for me to kind of just be with that and experience it and feel the sensations in the body and the nervousness and everything else, and be more okay with it. One of the things that does not help, as you stated, is like eradicating the anxiety, because whenever I've tried, I'm sure other people have had this experience, when you try to not be anxious, it just causes more anxiety. So it doesn't really work,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I think this is where part of what really could really serve us as humans is if we just allowed it all to be there. I think, and it's funny because it feels like I'm almost saying two different things. I really feel the power of emotional release work. It's definitely what I needed with my level of my conditioning and the way I was made up. I needed to excavate and dig those things out and clear and have my awareness shifted through those ways. But I think there's also a real power for us as humans in just learning to sit in the stuff that's not comfortable and realize that it's all safe. All emotion is safe, really. It's our response to it that maybe isn't, or has the potential not to be. Knowing when to get help and seek support, but yeah, realizing that there's emotions that feel heavy and there's emotions that feel light, but there's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong. There's more serving, there's better serving ways to feel and show up and be, but it's all part of who we are, and it's kind of getting okay in all of it. I think that's also really powerful.
Yeah, there's a saying, "This too shall pass." That's
One of my favorite ones.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and so, in terms of the movement of these patterns, or the energy, um, what what would you say makes that happen? Is that where, is consciousness somehow involved in this, sort of? Do you feel like you work as a sort of a channel, when connect in with someone else, and sort of kind of helping to focus that conscious awareness to that area? Is
Yeah, so in the spiral, we use the meridian channels. So we use meridian points, the same as you'd use in acupuncture and other forms of, I guess, yeah, Eastern theory, technology, whatever the word might be, to allow the emotion that relates to that meridian channel to move through the body. So there's a that's, I guess, what I mean by the body-based quality. We're actually accessing, um, through the body, accessing the release through the body. So the client would touch those points or rub those points. And I'm doing that with them. See, I'm very much using my own body as a channel, to help that release happen. But I find as well, outside of even the making contact with those points, it's the naming of the thing, the naming of the charge, the naming of the emotion that's really powerful. And it's almost like oh, okay, so that's what it is. The body can, it's like they've seen it. We found it. Great. Can I let go of it now? Because I think the body always wants to discharge. And when I say body, I mean emotional body. The two are one for me, the physical and the emotional. It's always wanting to discharge what it doesn't need. It's always wanting to let go. It's us. I think that allowing it to do so, that's the challenge. But the body also always wants to find the point of least resistance. It always wants to find that way to thrive and feel ease, I think. So we're just giving it that permission and giving it that guidance to do so. And we're listening ultimately. That's a huge part of it, I think. Just dropping into the session and listening to what the body wants to show you. It's so powerful.
Yeah, that's great. I like that word, allowing.
Yeah.
So it's like working with the body has such intelligence, and it. So I wonder what that power is that, like it sounds like the body is kind of knocking on the door. And like, is anybody there? And we're distracting ourselves or repressing or, everything's okay. And, and then finally there is this, it sounds like this looking or this attention on the naming. And so I wonder why that connection is so powerful, because it does seem, and I've experienced, I'm wondering for myself too, it does seem very, very powerful. I guess I wonder why the body just doesn't get rid of this stuff on its own. And is it because in some way that, and I want, and is it the mind that's sort of working in some way against the body, or by resisting and things of this nature?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, and I don't really know, but I guess my feeling around that would be, I feel just in terms of what it is to be human, there's this element around, wanting to hold on to these identities that we have created. And I think maybe that is the mind. The mind is so safe there that anything outside of that is so unknown. It's like, no, this is who I am. This is what we do. Just push that emotion away, because that doesn't feel good, and we'll just keep doing what we've always done because it's safe and we know it, even if it's immensely painful or depressing or totally not what we want to be doing. So yeah, I think it's like this holding on. So that's I guess this is what I mean by like the jumping off the cliff. It's like, the jumping into the abyss is going to be, it's more painful staying where you are sometimes. So if we can kind of remember that and know that all that's going to happen is the body's just going to follow. It's like it wants to go there, and the mind will eventually catch up. It will eventually figure it out and get on board in its own way. But yeah, I wonder if it's just to do with that not wanting to let go of what's known. I think it's part of that.
Yeah, it seems that way. There's a friend of mine that would say, when I let go, I leave scratch marks.
Yeah.
You
Bloody fingernails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this seems like a more gentle way of doing that. And
Yeah.
So we're at about an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow, that went so
Yeah.
fast.
Let's see. I did want a chance to read um, your poem. I know you didn't call it a poem, but
No, I love that you felt it as a poem. Yeah, I love that you felt it as a poem.
the, so this is called Lockdown Life. Not much has changed. Puppy mama in, covered in scratches and teeth marks, pocket filled with snacks. Days of surrender and days of longing for something else. Watching my hair grow, holding some incredible humans through their own unique transformation, seeing myself in all of them, marveling at their courage and commitment, marveling at my courage and commitment, falling deeper in love with us humans, diving into my own wealth work, forgiving others, internally vomiting at past relationships and vowing to do better in all the ways that I know how, laughing at myself, vowing never, ever, ever to self abandon again, claiming what I want and how I want to love and be loved, walking and walking and walking some more, learning how to make good coffee, lighting candles, remembering how it feels to be held in another's arms, dreaming in love, open into this new world that's forming inside and out, choosing to be here now. It was very lovely. And so if for those who didn't get the lines of puppy mama in and covered in scratches and teeth marks, Meech has a 5-month-old puppy.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. The, the line, seeing myself in, when you well, holding some incredible humans through their own unique transformation, seeing myself in all of them. What is your experience with like seeing yourself in all of them?
I think my experience of a practitioner anyway is definitely that, we attract those people that resonate with what we've come from. And not just what we've come from, what we've come from is part of who we are. And so, yeah, I never feel my client relationship as like a me and them, or yeah, like there's an interconnectedness in there's something shared, within that resonance. And so, yeah, I have the honor of being let into people's lives and to hear their journeys and their stories and to sit with them in their emotion. And I very often just relate to how they're feeling, how they felt. Their experience has often been my experience and vice versa. So, yeah, it's always a mirror. It's a relationship. And so there's that mirrored quality within it where I'm just like, wow, God, me too. Oh, me too. And
Yeah.
so I always learn a lot. I'm obviously holding that role, that space. I'm really just holding the mirror up though. And I guess the mirror is kind of me, like I kind of am the mirror. So it's not something that's separate from me or who I am. It's like,
Yeah.
I guess that's what it is, the practitioner, the mirror is made up of what I've journeyed as well,
Mm.
which I think is what's always driven me too. It's like the deeper I go with self, the deeper I can hold, the more depth I can hold within that mirror. So the deeper that other person can go too. So it's so interconnected to my own path. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it sounds like compassion and compassion that you've developed towards yourself and that you're able to really now offer in a deeper way to others. And I think that's really important, especially nowadays where there's a lot of division and polarization out there in the world. And, you know, a lot of with groups of people, who have been through certain traumatic experiences, people of different ethnic groups and sexual identities and things of this nature. And sometimes you hear from the other side, get over it. Why do why are you caught up on this stuff and always harping on these woes? Whereas, it's the work that you're doing is being with the person and kind of being there through that experience and finding some place of connection within yourself, being a human and going through your own stuff. And I think that capacity can only develop when you have done that work, or else where is it going to come where is it going to come from? It's just going to be sort of avoiding it in some sort of way. And that's both hearing you talk about that helps me to feel more of a sense of hope, that there's more hope out there in the world, while also feeling a little discouraged because I know how much work, I could sense how much work you've put into this and what it took to get you there. And I think probably a good part of it is grace as well. And, to think, but I still hold maybe that can kind of at some point spread through more, in the world. And, there's oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think we all just have as well, our own unique time frame of, my conditioning and my ancestry and my life experiences are uniquely mine. And so I can see how for all of us, there's a timing, to everything. There's a timing to those breakthroughs. There's a timing to, when we finally get it, when we finally come up against that thing for the millionth and one time, my road has been long. I've journeyed the long path for sure, but I can see that's part of how I work and how I move and how I weave through this world. For someone else, they might have, dived into some self-mastery work for a year and have, blasted through whatever. So I just think again, there's that honoring of what we need individually within our own timings, our own rhythms within the journey as well, so yeah.
That's an excellent point to bring up, and
Yeah.
let's see, the falling deeper in love with us humans. And I think I guess we just talked, kind of touched on that, but has there been a time where maybe you felt like it was a little bit more difficult to express love to others or to accept love from others?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's been part of this kind of self-worth journey for me, is I think within that there's inevitable discomforts within intimacy. And when I say intimacy, intimacy comes in so many forms. Yeah, so definitely I've been journeying that a lot actually this last year as well. There's been a lot of themes this last year. There's been this theme around receiving. And I think there's something in this way of masking actually what we really feel and making it about the external, which is part of this people pleasing thing I was talking about, means that actually we're not fully receiving ourselves, which is what I guess I meant by the self. I can't remember what I said in that poem, self-abandoning, self-abandonment, because it's such a betrayal of self when we ignore what we need, or we ignore how we feel, or we don't give ourselves space to fully take the time to 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 understand what that might be, even. And we do what's expected, or we think's expected, or whatever, all the ways we ignore and abandon ourselves. So yeah, being able to receive myself, as I was journeying that, I realized, God, I'm actually not very good at receiving others,
Mm.
because it's quite uncomfortable to come into that connection. It's really easy to just like put that mask on and give that person what they need, but it's not actually coming from a true space of me actually showing who I am fully. So we're not meeting in a really vulnerable place. I mean, there are moments of that, but so yeah, I've really been opening into that as well, because then, the crappy relationships are really easy, because you don't really have to show yourself. You don't really have to be intimate. You don't really have to be vulnerable. So it's like loving on the surface, loving with these walls up that you're kind of ignoring or pretending aren't there, or maybe you don't realize they're there. So yeah, definitely yes to that question.
Mm.
And it's still something I'm yeah, still something I'm working on, this theme of intimacy, and can I really receive myself, which means all of me,
Mm.
all the stuff that's still work in progress. Can I just love it all anyway, so then I can receive and love another in that space, and also let them see me in that. And that means friends, it means family, it means, those people that are there for that are
Mm.
there for that level of meeting you. Oh yeah, I could go off in a million tangents there, because yeah, we have to find it in ourselves first before we're even able to be met in that way, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm in that too.
Yeah. And just when you're speaking of that, it brought up for me, and the many ways that I'm not showing up for myself, and that I'm kind of you know show look into others to sort of validate myself, like, is this okay? And in certain situations in life, and and kind of lose in touch with um the my own experience, because I've judged it as being, I've so quickly judged it as being wrong, or have labeled it, like, maybe I've labeled it, okay, that's just my codependency issues, or my enabling. So I need to get over that, and and just listen to this person who is kind of pointing me in the direction of being more firm and more self-assured. But then I'm not trusting myself, because I'm afraid that I'm going to act from this old patterns that we've talked about. And so that fear, but then I'm taking on a different pattern, and so it's scary to kind of to be, with that old pattern, without judgment. But and I don't think you're saying that you have to act from these, from that place, but just being with it seems like it can bring you to more of a sort of a neutral sort of place, if I'm hearing that correctly.
Yeah, I think it's both, isn't it? I think we need to be discerning enough to know when we might need someone to show us a blind spot and to kind of call us forwards through that pattern, because I think otherwise we can bypass and we can end up, just, well, that's just who I am. And yeah, that's true. But is it creating connection? Is it sabotaging your life in other ways? So it's knowing, isn't it? It's being discerning about, okay, is that something that I do want to move through and change and gather the wisdom from, so I can do something different? Or actually, do I just need to hold that in love for now, and kind of get to know that part and be in that. And because I think there's this, we feel the pattern, then we feel the trigger within the pattern, and the trigger is also part of the pattern. So I guess it's learning to be discerning of when we do need to call ourselves forwards into a different space, and sometimes we do need to give ourselves a little talking to. But sometimes we punish ourselves in all the ways that that's possible, and actually, the way we move through the world doesn't need to look like everyone else's way. So that's, I guess, what I mean. It's learning to know what wants to be released and let go of, and what actually just needs to be accepted and embodied. Yeah.
So let's see, we talked about the self-abandon, learning how to make good coffee. Have you learned?
I know.
No.
I think you'd be terrified by my coffee. I just like it really milky and really sweet. So I don't think that's the proper way to drink coffee. But I'm learning, the strengths. I'm not actually that great with coffee. I get a bit too wired.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a couple of cups a week, and at the moment I'm not drinking any. But yeah, because I'm such a part-time coffee drinker, I wasn't very good at people. I'd make someone a coffee and they'd be like, what? It just tastes like water. Or just learning the ratios of coffee to water. That's the first step. That's been a big game changer.
That is, it's 15 to 1. That's a good place to start. So 1 gram of coffee per 15 grams of water. And if you grind the beans, if you have a grinder, grind the beans right before, then you'll be fine.
Oh, haven't got to bean level yet.
Okay.
It's already ground in a tub, ready to go. But
as long as you're not drinking Folgers or anything like that, or then
no instant coffee. It's definitely real. Definitely real. That's the step I'm at.
And so the last line on here is choosing to be here now. So what do you mean by choosing to be here now?
Yeah, my we're talking about this, under the surface, not fitting what was on the surface. I think that's part of what I've really been landing into. It feels so good to settle there. It's just being with what is, which at the moment is actually quite a lot of monotony and everything's very samey. And I think I've had this tendency in the past to always wanting to be changing something. So, but I'm not there yet. So what do I need to do to get there? Which is come in so many different forms. It's also the way we can numb ourselves in all the ways we numb. So I'm really learning to just sit in what is, which for me is sometimes just staring at the ceiling, actually, just sitting in the isness, which is huge. As someone, you were talking about it as well. It's huge when we've had that underlying patterning of anxiety that can come up quite easily. So being in that, not needing it to be different, when the mind wants to go to all the ways that things could be terrible tomorrow, just also sitting with that. And I've been deepening a lot into the work within the feminine paradigm. So this idea that slowing down is part of what allows us to actually find more alignment and clarity. So being here now, just even if it just feels really boring or really uncomfortable or really uncertain, it's like I'm getting my nervous system okay with being there anyway. That's been powerful for me.
Yeah, that I think that's great, because the am I there yet? The mind is constantly, feels like there's something missing, there's something that needs to be done, and it could touch back into that feeling of being not enough and things
Yeah,
of this nature. And so at that moment, to give yourself that space to look at the ceiling or whatever, just sit there and not have to do anything.
exactly.
Yeah, I
And
think
there are
that's
so many
important.
ways now for us to compare ourselves. There are so many,
Yeah.
there's so much, being, you know, put in our faces every day. And if we view it in that way, it's, we could see all the things that we don't have, all the things that we are not, if we chose to. So it's choosing the other way, which is just outside of that comparison, outside of that need to be anywhere or anything. And of course there's two sides to it all the time, because
Mhm.
sometimes, like I said earlier, we do sometimes want to move forwards, and we do get inspired by the way someone's showing up, and we do want to embody more of that for ourselves. But
Yeah.
I guess with my journey and my journey into sovereignty, it's this discernment, like, is that really what I'm being called to do, or create? Or is it just that I feel like I need that to be okay, to be, a worthy member of this world, or to be whatever, insert word here. um so that for me, yeah, it's that discernment, within what we actually want and need.
Yeah.
Which is also a journey, learning to tap into our feelings and our needs. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
I think part of that seems to, as you stated earlier, to be able to take some time and to feel whatever, to sit with what's here, or else we can easily, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a little distraction and things like that, but it can become a go-to and kind of a habit of just checking out, because it may feel overwhelming that, okay, I'm not doing these things, I'm not doing enough, flipping through Instagram and Facebook, everyone else is doing so much and I'm just sitting
Yeah.
here, and so I'm not doing enough. And then, so that comparison of yeah.
Yeah.
um so if this has been a lovely conversation, just being here with you. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would like to have talked about, or anything that you'd like to talk about before we wrap up?
Mm. I feel really complete. I mean, I feel like I could talk for hours. If we there's I love talking about the journey, but no, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, and I feel like I've used a lot of words that
Yeah.
for some people might be slightly confusing, but hopefully the essence has come through in relation to journeying sovereignty as someone who's always lived from feeling like they need to please or fit some kind of mold. So
Yeah.
I guess really, yeah, I love that we've talked about all the elements and threads of that could exist. So yeah, I feel really
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll do this again sometime and
yeah,
cover, I'm sure there's a lot more terrain that we can cover next time.
yes, for sure.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to? Are you offering, I know with COVID things are maybe a little bit different, but are you offering, first of all, what type of work do you offer? Do you have one-on-ones, retreats, or, and where can people reach you?
Yeah, so meeshdenny.com is my website. I'm on Facebook. I haven't really got a Facebook business page yet. I kind of missed the memo on that one, but my website is there. Um, I'm really at the moment just offering spiral, one-to-one spiral work. I am in the process of creating a program called Sovereign,
Mhm.
which I launched and then I unlaunched because uh, I'm still, yeah, learning that pattern of when to wait and when to
Mm.
actually when it's a yes. So I'm feeling that's going to be February or March, and I'm going to be bringing a journey, a group journey in around this theme, all the things we've been talking about, but that's still forming. But yeah, I'm available for one-to-one work basically within the emotional clearing spiral realm. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
So
conversation, and I love receiving messages in my inbox, of inspiration, and I tend to just drop. I work vocally as well, so vocal soundscapes. I tend to drop them on my Facebook page, but I will be creating a space for those at some point as well. More
yeah.
music basically is coming through.
Yeah, and your music is lovely. I meant to talk a little bit about that, but we're running out of time. So yeah, folks, you can reach Meesh Denny at Meesh Denny, MEESHDENNY.com. For one-on-one spiral work. Also, there's I think on that website is the guided meditation on that
I
website,
think
or
I have to, I need to go and look at my website again. So I haven't looked at it for a while. I think I've got a section that says, yeah, meditations and music, but I
yeah.
need to update it. 'Cause I have got a YouTube channel and it's all just like videos of me in my bedroom, basically with a microphone. But there are some ones in there that are quite nice to listen to. I'm getting a little bit better with my tech these days. But yeah, there's a section there where the meditation is. I haven't
Yeah.
made any more of those since that time, but that was right at the beginning of the first lockdown. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that I think the meditation is called letting go or
Yeah.
something similar, and I think it's a link to SoundCloud if I remember correctly. Lovely guided meditation. So I highly recommend it if you're feeling stressed during this difficult time that we're all experiencing with COVID and things that are going on, especially in the U.S. As well with the political atmosphere. And so if you go to meeshdenny.com, you can find the guided meditation. Also, you can message her about spiral work and learn more about that. I think there is some information about that on the website, if I remember correctly. I will post the link to the website in the description of this video. And so also I do edit this video. Basically it's the same, but just with an intro and exit. And if you give me your email, I'll send you a copy of the video. You can do with it whatever you want. So you have it. It'll be a Dropbox file
Okay.
where you could download the video. And it'll also be up here on Facebook as well. So some closing remarks. This is Guided Meditations and More. I'm your host, Ade Richardson, and today's guest is Meesh Denny. And if you'd like to get in touch with Meesh, the link to her website will be on this page. It's meeshdenny.com. If you have any comments or questions for Meesh, you can also search her on Facebook. She's on Facebook. Just search Meesh Denny, MEESH, last name DENNY. And you can go to her website as well if you have any questions. If you have any comments or questions for me, please leave them below this video, or you can send me a direct message to my inbox. If you enjoy these podcasts or the guided meditations and you'd like to be updated on what I'm doing next, if you like or follow the page, you'll get the updates and notifications. And also, I appreciate comments and feedbacks on the page, and let me know. I'm welcome to suggestions and things of this nature. And if you'd like to suggest a guest, if there's someone that you think would be right for this podcast, please send me a message to my inbox. So, Meesh, thank you so much. I'm glad we're able to finally sit
Yeah. So
together.
nice to meet you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate. Thanks a lot, and thank you, everyone, and be well.